Well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Terri Show that I want to start with a question. Do you ever wonder to yourself if anything good ever comes out of the traumas that we experience in life? Or are they just awful things that happen to us and nothing productive comes out of them? Well, in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about post-traumatic growth. What happens, what can happen, doesn't automatically happen, but what can happen, and how there are positive changes that can happen after we have a traumatic experience. So before we get started, if you happen to be new to my YouTube channel, well, hello and welcome. I'm so happy that you are here. Please make sure that you say hello. We are a friendly group. Also, before we get started, make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell because you'll get notified then every time I roll out new stuff, which is every Tuesday and every Thursday. And honestly, pal, I wouldn't want you to miss a thing because you guys are the reason I roll out new content twice a week. I also love all of your questions and your comments and how active and supportive you are of each other in this channel. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I want to highlight a comment from Daria Z, and it was under the video Emotional Blackmail, Tactics and Signs to Watch Out For. And Daria says, "Thank you, Terri. Your work is so precious. I have so much gratitude for you." Well, Daria Z, I have so much gratitude for you as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. All right, let's move it on into today's content. All right, when I was a young therapist, I noticed this phenomenon with my clients that after a traumatic experience, after we had processed a traumatic experience, there seemed to be this opening. It was like the window for transformation. Somehow, throughout the traumatic experience, got like jacked open really, really high. And it always seemed to me that we could do a lot of work, like a year's worth of work in 3 months or 2 years in 8 months. It just seemed like the acceleration of growth. I just noticed this pattern. And so it wasn't just in my mind, and it wasn't just one client, it was more than one client. And this was long before I had ever heard of a concept called post-traumatic growth. Never heard of it, didn't know what it was, but I just noticed this on my own. So the general concept of traumatic experiences leading to positive changes. Now that's as old as time, right? That's not like brand new, but it wasn't until the mid-90s that the term post-traumatic growth itself as an actual therapeutic term was coined by two psychologists, Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun. And what they proposed was that the post-traumatic growth happens in 5 areas of our lives. So that is appreciation for life is one of them, relationships with others, like how we relate to others, how we feel about others, new possibilities in life, sort of seeing life through a different lens and seeing more possibility than we did before the experience, having more personal strength, and the 5th one is some kind of a spiritual change. So I can say for myself, I've had different traumatic experiences in my life. If you know my work, if you know my story, then you know this, so bear with. But if you don't, you don't. My husband and I, he was only my boyfriend at the time, got held up at gunpoint. This is almost 25 years ago. I won't get into that whole experience itself right now. I've told it before. It's it's slightly traumatic to retell, but I will talk about what happened after. That I definitely experienced a traumatic response to being held up, or a post-traumatic response, but it did not fall into the category of post-traumatic stress syndrome because my trauma response and reaction happened over a normal period of time. It's normal. If you get held up at gunpoint, so I was having intrusive thoughts, I was having scary dreams, I was afraid to be alone in my own house. The reality was I had not had those experiences before being held up at gunpoint. I really wasn't a very fearful person. I wasn't afraid to be alone in my house. So all of this really, really pissed me off, but these are normal. My startle response was absolutely heightened in a way that was super noticeable. It just felt like everyone was sneaking up on me at all times, which of course, was not happening. What had changed? I had changed. The world had not changed. But if you have a traumatic experience and over the next 3 months to a year, let's say, if your symptoms start abating, getting less, then you're going in the right direction. And of course, I was talking to a trauma therapist. I was doing all the things that I needed to do to get better, because I knew that if I didn't take care of it, and I'm privileged to have been able to afford to be in therapy at the time, and I've been in therapy for many, 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 many years, like decades at this point, that it wasn't going to get better. Because what happens with a traumatic response, especially if it's post-traumatic stress syndrome, is that your life gets smaller and smaller. Because suddenly there were all these things I was now afraid to do that I was never afraid to do before. So I had to deal with each and every one of them in therapy. And I had to, as the triggers came up, as things reminded me, or people reminded me of the perpetrator, or a night. It was a summer night, and it was beautiful out, but it was pitch dark when we had this experience. So I would have a summer night being pitch dark, and I would start to feel anxious. But again, these can be normal trauma responses. It's if they get frozen in time, and if the stimuli brings you back to the original experience as if you're reliving the original experience. This is what happens in post-traumatic stress syndrome, where you'll get triggered in a way that makes you feel like it's all happening all over again. So anyway, that was a long way around the barn to get back to. In my own life, I noticed I changed my life after that. And my story was, not my story, but what happened in my life was I got a cancer diagnosis. This is right in the beginning of my relationship with my husband. And then we got held up at gunpoint. So I had, I called it getting my PhD in fear, because that's really what it felt like. But it also inspired me to change my life. And if I look at the list that Tedeschi and Calhoun created, I could see that without a doubt, I was already pretty appreciative of life, but I can tell you my appreciation for life went up 15-fold through both of those experiences, right? You stop taking life for granted when it could be snuffed out in a moment. You stop thinking you have all the tomorrows in the world because you are so friggin' clear that you may not. So every day is a friggin' gift. Every chance you get to do more of this amazing thing called life, you feel that way. My relationships with others, I stopped taking people for granted. I realized not how precious life is, but how fleeting it could be. And that may sound depressing, but what it did is it made me be more committed to my relationships, my friendships, my sisters, my mother, my family. I saw new possibilities in life, right? That's number 3 on their list. I was pretty clear about my personal strength before these experiences, but when you go through something really gnarly or a couple of gnarly things, you're like, damn, like I'm a boss. Like I'm literally a boss. I know I can count on myself. I can do hard things. Yes, Glennon Doyle, I sure as hell can. I sure as hell have, and I sure as hell will continue to. But it creates a certain solid sense of self internally where you're like, no matter what life throws at me, like literally, I'm going to be okay. Like I can handle it. And then there was a spiritual change too. And I found myself on definitely a more seeking journey, sort of about the meaning of life and trying to figure out what did I believe happened after we're not in this incarnation and all of that stuff. Working with Deepak Chopra, all of these different things, meditation practice, all of those things came. And I believe that it was a part of my own post-traumatic growth from having those traumatic experiences. So I also was seeking it, right? I wanted something positive to come out of scary, scary things that happened in my life. I also felt so compelled. I mean, my whole platform is born out of wanting to help others not suffer in the way that I was during those times, because you're not alone. Because I want to be a part of your solution. I want to help if you find yourself in a stuck place or in a hurt place, or if you just got a cancer diagnosis. Like, I always was a helper, but there was something about those experiences that changed my life. And I was already in the process of going from being a talent agent to being a psychotherapist, but this desire to help the broader world was certainly born out of those experiences. And I also want to say that you can experience post-traumatic growth, even if you have suffered from post-traumatic stress syndrome, right? These things are not mutually exclusive in life, where I feel like you can do both of those things. And the studies tell us that it's possible to do both. So what can you do? And how can you sort of reframe the traumatic experiences in your life? I mean, listen, working with a trauma therapist, obviously, if you have the luxury of doing that, or any therapist who is trauma informed, is a good idea. I would say you really need to do that. There are also amazing books out there by Basil van der Kolk, The Body Keeps Score, and there's so many others that could be really helpful if you don't have access to therapy. But therapy is probably would be the fastest way to not end up frozen in a post-traumatic stress syndrome experience. So what else can you do? Give yourself permission to grieve, right? The grieving process is so important when we've experienced a trauma, because here's the thing. You're literally never going to be the same again. You're not. That doesn't have to be a bad thing. But when I got diagnosed with cancer, I remember thinking like I needed to mourn my innocence, the old me who thought it would never be me. I was a vegetarian. I was healthy as hell. I worked out all the time. What? I'd stopped drinking when I was so young. Like, how could I get cancer? Well, P.S., anybody could get cancer. But I needed to mourn that. And I was like so pissed off at my own body. I was like, you let me down. I feel like I've treated you pretty good. And you let me down. That's a whole mourning process. So we need to give ourselves permission to grieve the significant losses in our lives. This is a central component to post-traumatic growth, right? It's giving ourselves that permission to be sad about what we lost. Be sad about what we experienced. Have self-compassion for what we've gone through and for what won't be the same again. I remember after 9/11, one of my therapists who was in one of the towers, he had said to me, I literally saw people jumping out of windows. How will I ever be the same again? And I remember just saying, you won't. You will never be the same again. But we can process what you experienced, and I can hold space for that for you or whatever. But it wasn't even I didn't have a second of thought that there's no way we can be the same. But that isn't the goal, right? The goal is to integrate these experiences into our lives so that we have more strength, so that, look at that list of 5. That's the goal, is how do we integrate these experiences into the tapestry, the unique and funky tapestry of our lives. Because when trauma is not processed, it is not integrated into that tapestry. It is separate from, which is what keeps us stuck. So we want to give ourselves permission to grieve. And then there's this great idea about writing your story. So therapist and author, she's also a lecturer, her name is Raquel Lerner. She recommends, when it comes to creating more post-traumatic growth, is writing, like having this experiential strategy to identify, clarify, and solidify your post-traumatic growth. So when you think about it, and this is what Raquel says, and it's so true, every time we describe our life's events, we're both providing and discovering underlying patterns of meaning, because it is the meaning that we make of our experience that shapes how we feel, think, and respond. So in the guide, so terricole.com/guide, I'm giving you her prompts to basically write out. And it's sort of like the first prompt is once upon a time. That's where you would talk about the wounding experience. And then in the middle, and when he grew up, right? And that is where you're going to be telling the story of the present, where you are now. And then the third prompt is, the story changed when. And this is where you write your vision of what you want to create in your life. When you think about traumatic experiences, how many stories have you heard or read about people who had terrible experiences, losing a child to cancer or violence or whatever, and then they create a foundation, and then they help thousands of other families suffer less. That is a perfect example of post-traumatic growth, because those folks are inspired to help others suffer less. They feel connected to victims of the same experience. Deepak Chopra said years ago, I was at something with him, and he basically said, if you have an experience in life that is horrible, a terrible, painful experience, but you learned something, and you could share that something that you learned with others who are having a similar terrible, horrible experience, and that something could lessen their suffering, then you must do that thing. And that stuck with me for so many years, and I've really lived by that, right? You guys all know what is my trip, what is my dream, what is my dharma, is to help you lessen your own suffering. I hope that what I'm sharing here does just that. Elevates your joy, lessens your suffering, and that together we create a collective, positive ripple in the world, right? Positive world domination. That is my goal. That is what I want. And really in the form of helping people heal their own wounds. Because the healthier we are as a world, as a global community, as our global family, the healthier the world will be. And that really is my whole dream. So I hope that this episode added value to your life. I hope that you learned something. Please go get the guide, terricole.com/guide. And I really think that you will find value in that for any traumatic experience you may have had in your life that might still be charged. You can find a way to sort of transform that and to harness the power of more post-traumatic growth. So as always, thank you for being with me today. I appreciate you. I hope you guys have the most amazing week. And as always, take care of you.